Hey everyone, TeaDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about Pu'erh storage anxiety, a little bit about risk tolerance, and choosing just sort of goals and thinking about some of those things. So a lot more of the psychological aspects having to do with Pu'erh storage. So really inspired by this topic just by seeing a lot of people talking about it. I've seen Marco especially throw around the term Pu'erh storage anxiety, which I think is an interesting term, and I think it does sum up a lot of the sort of, often on psychological anxiety we might have surrounding tea that we choose to store here in the West. To talk about a little bit about the Pu'erh storage anxiety, it's not something that's really hard to find. It's easy to come across our Pu'erh or our tea or somewhere on Slack or Discord and find people that are worried or very anxious about their storage. Some of these people have just been storing Pu'erh on the shelf. Other people have sort of come across some sort of a more elaborate mechanism like a Pu'erh and are starting to question whether their tea is going in the right or wrong direction. So I think a lot of that's very understandable. Pu'erh storage in the West is inherently kind of a risky thing to do. There is very little history of Pu'erh stored well in the West. I have had the privilege of trying maybe 10 or 12 different storages in the West, probably actually more than that at this point. And frankly speaking, most all of them, maybe 95% of them, are really not necessarily to my taste and not something that I have a high degree of confidence in. So by doing that, by storing Pu'erh tea in the West, we are continuing this line of mediocrity. Our climates are very, very different from places where I personally like the Pu'erh stored there. So places like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia. We're just dealt a very, very different hand. And so we are inherently jumping into the unknown, and anxiety around that is normal. It also reminds me a little bit of something that you run into a little bit as you sort of talk about like investing in stocks and stuff like that, and just your own personal risk tolerance towards that. And oftentimes when you're like just starting to do that stuff, you'll fill out some sort of questionnaire, and really what they're trying to find out is just sort of your risk tolerance. And basically when it comes to sort of investing, it's like when the market drops and the price of your portfolio goes down, are you someone that's probably going to be selling, panic selling, or are you someone that can sort of ride and see the larger picture of ups and downs in the market, and you'll be willing to hold? And so you would then have a higher risk tolerance. And I frankly think that some people should think about Pu'erh storage in that way. If you are someone that gets really anxious or second guessing or neurotic about things, you should think long and hard if Pu'erh storage is for you, or if you'd be better off just buying a smaller amount of cakes, some advice that I personally probably should have taken, and buying those cakes and storing them basically for more immediate consumption, and storing them in a way that they're not going to go bad, rather than in a way where you have so much tea that inevitably you're going to be storing tea for 30 or 40 years. Think about that. I don't think everyone thinks about that enough. A lot of people that are into Pu'erh are very, very young, so they do have a lot of time, but would they be better off just buying tea for more consumption? I don't know. I suspect a lot of people would be. Another thing you really do run into is that people will really freak out and overread the situations. You see a lot of people having like one session of a tea, determining that their storage is all messed up and stuff like that. Some people have a couple sessions. So I think in a lot of situations, their storage in the end is mostly fine. Maybe they should tweak one or two things, but most of the time when I see these freakouts, especially for people that have some sort of a Pu'erh or something like that, they're situations that are pretty simple and easy to solve and don't necessarily involve totally rethinking everything. Tweaks here and there are good. Like for instance, you could tweak your temperature up or down, or you could tweak your humidity up or down. Those are probably smart things to think about, but oftentimes you'll see people just totally switching gears and stuff like that, and I think often unnecessarily. So I do think, I don't know, yeah, people, there's a lot of freaking out when it comes to that stuff. So thinking about that, I think it's also, and recognizing what is potentially a more fundamental flaw versus a more temporary, maybe you just had a bad session. Those things happen whether you have, when you have good storage as well. So there's a lot that goes into the cup that ends up being presented to us. So yeah, think about all that stuff as well. Another thing I really like about a lot of what Marco's discourse does is he really talks a bit about goals. What are you shooting for? What type of storage? Our climate is just inherently different. What maintenance and what risk are you willing to have? For instance, if you're someone that is that likes Guangzhou storage, you really like that tea, but you're living in somewhere like Seattle or New York or Toronto or wherever, you're not going to be able to get that unless you're willing to take the risk of heated storage. Is taking heated storage worth the risk? For some people, maybe it is. Or would you be better off just storing your tea with a more preservation focused goal in Mylar or Boveda and accepting that your tea is never going to be Guangzhou? Yeah, so you should recognize your own storage preferences and think, is it worth it for me to really shoot for that, or would you rather go for something else? For instance, I am someone that also prefers that Taiwan, Guangzhou, Malaysia storage, but I'm unwilling to accept the maintenance especially, but also a bit of the risk with attempting to store the amount of tea that I have in that way. So I'm resigned to having my tea probably be stored in a way that I actually don't terribly care for, that will probably be a lot more Kunming-like than I think a lot of people like in the West. And that's just because I am dealing with sort of the hand that I've been dealt, and I'm just not willing to deal with the with heating my own storage, mainly because I have so many cakes. Yeah, so really think about, do you want to just maintain your Pu'erh, or are you looking at this in more of the very, very long term, 20 to 30 years, and can you deal with the maintenance and the risk associated with that? So yeah, think about those things. Yeah, just some food for thought. Let me know how you think about these things. If you are someone that is storing Pu'erh, are you shooting to store tea more for maintenance? Are you shooting to really, you're looking to have like a really nice aged stash in 20 or 30 years? Or are you, yeah, let me know how you have landed on these issues, if you thought about them, or if you think I'm wrong, if you think that people should be more, I don't know, if you've had your own Pu'erh storage anxiety, worries and stuff like that, let me know about that too. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Cheers.